Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Board Games Are For Everybody, where today we're going to be talking about Remember Our Trip. This is an abstract-ish strategy game. I guess it's more like a tile-laying strategy game for 2 to 4 players. It's a pretty weird game to kind of wrap your head around at first. As you play a few rounds, I think it's something that you can get into a little quicker. We're going to be going to go through a 2-player game, seeing as that's typically how much we end up playing with. However, it could possibly be good at 3 or 4. I just unfortunately have not played them at that amount, so we are going to go through the 2-player game. First things first, each player is going to get a reference board, and they are also going to get a board in their color from these guys up here. Now, as you can see, we also have up here this central pink board. This pink board is going to be a shared board that is used between both players throughout the game. And we actually have one more board in here that I forgot to grab. We've also got this guy right here, which is our action board, I believe is what the game officially calls it. First thing we want to do is we are going to just shuffle these cards up here. There are a handful of different cards in the game, starting with these guys here, which are just used as placement cards, which we will get into in just a second. These get shuffled up and they are placed into the draw pile right here. We'll put those down in a sec. These guys here are different objective cards. These are things that people want to try and accomplish throughout the game. Now, there are 2 different set of objective cards. There are 5 more advanced objective cards that are double-sided, and then there are also 5 basic objective cards that are a little easier to manage. So let's just randomly select one of these objective cards, as the other ones will not be used throughout the game. So for this objective card, players would get an extra 6 points at the end of the game if they manage to get 2 separate shop districts, one of 3 and one of 3 in an L shape. That will come over here as well. We're just going to place that there for the time being. So the other objectives go back into the box. We are now pretty well set up for our game, with one last exception. Because we are playing a 2-player game, there are a handful of tokens that need to be taken out, which is displayed on the back of the playboard here. 6 restaurant tokens, 6 shop tokens, 6 park tokens, 6 hotel tokens, and 6 monument tokens are all taken out of the game in order to accommodate 2 players, and those tokens are all in here. Now we have 2 different boards that could be played, which is where all of these monument tiles that I'm tossing all over the place come into place. We have a bunch of different monuments. I believe there are 6 different monuments in the game, 3 for the Kyoto map and 3 for the Singapore map. The maps are on both sides of the board, with this side being the Kyoto map and this side being the Singapore map. We're going to go through the Kyoto map just as a demonstration for this particular demonstration. Also, as I'm going through this, I realized that we're still missing some stuff here. We have our mat for our tiles. It also shows which board we are playing on. That's going to be pretty helpful. We'll toss that here for the time being. We also have our scoreboard, which is also going to be helpful. This is going to be where we place our extra objective card that we drew not too long ago there. So that's going to be placed there just as a reminder to players as the game progresses that there is an extra objective to go for. So seeing as we are playing the Kyoto map, what we're going to do is we're going to get our 2, 4, 6, 8 different tiles that are going to be placed on this map. As you can see through here for Kyoto, we have the Kyoto Gosho, we have the Kyoto Tower, and we have the Kiyomizu Dera, which are the 3 monuments for this board, which we have one here, and the last one is around here somewhere. It's not the Ferris wheel. It is the... Oh, it seems to have fallen off its thing. That's why. Well, we got the pieces here. We can throw those on. And the last one is here. So our other monuments will not be used for the rest of this playthrough, seeing as we are playing on the Kyoto side, and the other 3 monuments are for the Singapore side. So we're going to take our 3 monument tokens here. We're just going to place them on top of the corresponding tiles for the time being. After that, we need to get our hotel tiles. Now, you would have the same amount of tiles whether you are playing a 2-player or 4-player game. It's just the amount of discs that end up inside of the bag that are going to end up being different depending on how many players you are playing with. We're going to slowly start taking stuff out here. So we need to take out 6 park tokens. Now, it doesn't matter which of the park tokens you take out. They do all have different symbols on them. There's a bench, a fountain, and there's also a little statue kind of a thing. It doesn't matter which ones you take out, so long as you take 6 total out for each of the different things. We're going to be taking out 6 restaurant tokens here. That's 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to be taking out 6 hotel tokens. 4, 5, 6. We're going to be taking out 6 shop tokens. 4, 5, 6. We're going to be taking out 6 of the monument tokens. 5, 6. And what was the other one? I feel like there's another one. Monument. Nope, just 5. Nope, that's everything. So all of our other circles can go into the pouch that I have on the right hand side here. And those are what's going to be used for the game. These square tokens are going to be placed onto our token board over here. These square tokens are used to mark a confirmed territory on the communal board up in the top right here. We'll get to that in just a sec. This is definitely a game that I need to get some bags for so that I can organize everything a little better here. It would make startup much quicker each game if we could just have all the pieces properly separated from the get-go. This is a game that I didn't actually see before I ended up purchasing it, I don't think. I think I had heard someone talking about it, and I feel like I maybe saw like a handful of photos or something like that, and it was just a game that looked really interesting to me, and it was a game that I wanted to try out, which is why we ended up buying it. And turns out it was pretty fun. Did I get everything out of the bag here? Oh, well, there's some tokens in the bag here left, but I feel like I'm missing a... Oh, it's on the back, that's why. I'm not missing a piece. Ignore me. Just trying to make sure I'm not missing pieces. We've only played the game once or twice at this point, but Always have that fear of losing pieces, eh? Okay, I think we've pretty much got everything that isn't a circle token. So we're just going to toss the rest of these into the bag here, and we're going to hope for the best. I think we got all the square tokens and put them onto the board here. So once you have all of the tokens counted for whatever player count that you have, you're just going to toss them all back into the bag here. And from that point, you just have to figure out what player is the starting player. If you're going by the instructions, then you want to choose the player who last traveled outside of your country of residence as the player who goes first. We do not do a whole lot of traveling, so when we played, we just had to do a game of rock, paper, scissors because we don't travel all that much. Okay, now that everything is inside the bag, we're just going to shake those up. We can get everything properly started here. You'll notice that on the top right of the board here, we have a little compass that is in the bottom right of the rest of our boards here. You want to make sure that all of your compasses are facing the same direction in order to keep things in check in the correct orientation while you're playing the game. So we're just going to put our tokens up on the score track up here. And after you determine which player goes first, they get to put this little piece onto their player board. So let's say the green player is the first player to start. What you would do is you start by drawing one of the cards up here. As you can see, it has a 3 in the 2 corners here. So once you know what number is on the card, you are going to take 3 tokens and place them in each of the top 3 spots. You only ever use the 4th spot if you are playing with 3 or 4 players as you go through each round. So we have our 3 pieces set up here, and seeing as the green player is the first player to go, they're going to choose one of these 3 sections and take all of the tokens that are within that section, and they're going to have to place them in the same orientation that is on the card. So we have to place our 3 tokens into one of these 4 spots in the same orientation that is on the card. So let's say that we wanted to take this center one down here. What we're going to do is we are going to place, let's say we want to place one here. We place one here, and let's say we decide to put a shop down in this bottom part here. Now, at this point, if we had something that we could confirm, which currently we do not, that would be the phase to do it. But seeing as we don't have anything to confirm yet, we would move on to the next player's turn, who is also going to select one of the 2 remaining tile spaces and select the tokens that are on top of it. So let's say that they want to go for this one up here, and they need to do the exact same thing. They need to place them down using the orientation that's on the card. So let's say that they choose to cover this orange spot down here, and then let's say they want to go here and they want to go here. So this would end the first turn, seeing as both players have placed their cards down. You are not allowed to place anything inside of a river. If you would place something inside the river, or if you can't place a token that you want to place down, you would place the token into this spot on the right-hand side of your reference sheet here. And at the end of the game, you lose 1 point for each token that you were not able to place during the game. So we would move on to round 2. The token would go over here. All tokens that are unused on the board up here are just discarded from the game. They are no longer used. The yellow player would now flip up another card. Once again, it's going to be 3 cards on on each tile space, 3 tokens on each tile space, I should say. So we have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So from here, the yellow player, let's say they want to work on this shop district down here. And remember that our bonus card up here does require 2 different shop districts to be made. So we are going to, let's say the yellow player is going to go for this set up here. And we now have to place in the orientation on this card. So we have to do our 3 tokens in one of these 4 diagonal spaces. So let's say they want to place one here, and they want to place one here. And then let's say they choose to put their hotel right on this edge here. Seeing as you cannot go off the board, it would put them into a space that no longer has a tile to go on, and we can't place stuff into the water. So that would be where yellow decides to place. Now, seeing as it's the end of this turn, if they chose to, which, for example, we'll do it now, if they wanted to confirm this shop district down here, what they would do is that they would flip these 3 tiles over to confirm them. They would score their points based on the character sheet, which, as you can see down here, for 3 tiles, you gain 0 points. However, what happens when you confirm a set of tiles is that on the communal board up on the top here, that is what is remembered from the trip. So up on the communal board here, you throw 3 shop tiles down, and because this character board matches the communal board, they actually gain bonus points for the tiles that they have just laid down. So they're going to gain 1 point for each tile that matches the communal board. So they're going to gain 3 points because of the tiles that they just flipped over. So they would move up 3 points on the tracker, and then it would go over to the green player, who, let's say, the tiles that got pulled up here aren't that great, but let's say that they just go with this one here. They decide to toss 1 here. Now, we don't want to put anything here on this space because it is a water space that we can't put stuff on. However, you can go across the water space because we do have that leniency of 4 tiles. So we would be skipping 1 tile going there. And then let's say we just want to put the shop down on the bottom here. And that would end the turn for the green player. So that would bring us to the next round. The green player would draw a card. Once again, we have the same one here. And we're just going to do 3 on each tile here. So from this point, green is going to select one of the things. Trying to think what the best option here would be for building. Let's go with these hotel sections here. Seems to be pretty good. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a hotel here. We'll put our, actually, you know what we're going to do is we're going to put our thing there. No, yeah. See, this is where it kind of gets thinky, is that you have to figure out where you want to place stuff so that you're not going to kind of screw yourself over in the long run. So what we're going to do is we're going to place our 2 hotel tiles on the side here. We're going to place our monument in the middle. And then we would come back over to the yellow player who, let's say they want to go with this up here. And they're going to go monuments. And so they want to put this down here. Alrighty, so you cannot flip over any of your tiles unless there's at least 3 of them. You have to have 3 tiles in order to be able to flip them over. You also cannot flip tiles over that aren't adjacent to each other. So you can, like we did with the example here, because they were in an L shape, you could flip them over. However, say this guy here was still unflipped. These 2 wouldn't be able to be flipped because they aren't attached to each other. So we've placed our stuff down. That would bring us to the next round. And I'm just going to start pulling pieces so we can get some better examples here. But as you go through the deck, you have different cards that come out in different varying tile amounts, as well as positions in which they can be placed. And what you're trying to do throughout the game is you're trying to place your tiles down so that you can score as many points as possible. So let's just throw some examples up here with specific tiles. Let's say that throughout the game, we've got a set of 3 hotels up here. Because we have 3 hotels in a straight orientation here, we're going to flip those over on our board. And on the communal board, starting at A4, we're going to put a hotel down here. Now, on the back of these tiles, you can see that for one completed structure, you gain 4 points. And because on the communal board, we just placed this spot down, so it is, in fact, the same orientation on our board. So we gain that additional 3 points for having the same orientation. That is 1 point per space that is the same. So that would put us up to 7 points. Now, let's say that the opposing player happened to have a bunch of restaurants up in this section here that they were working on. Let's say they have this huge restaurant sector up here, and they decide to flip over their restaurant section. They would flip over all of these restaurant pieces, and in accordance to the rules, we would gain what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you gain 5 points for 6 or more connected pieces. So that would be 5 points. And on our board, we would also be placing restaurant tiles. However, you may notice that on the yellow player's spot, there are tiles there that are taken up by a hotel currently on the communal board. So what would happen is that these restaurant tokens would be placed everywhere except for the spaces that are already taken up by the hotel. So this would go all the way up the side here. So what would happen in this case is that the player would score their 5 points from building this restaurant section here, but they would only gain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 additional points for matching on the board because these 2 spots are already taken up by a hotel. So they would advance 5 plus 6, which is 11, which would put them up to 14. And this is kind of how it works back and forth as you go through the game. You're trying to create tiles. You're trying to outpace your opponents and lay down your pieces. And it really is a balance of trying to focus on whether you want to try and make larger structures to gain more points, or if you want to focus on getting stuff onto the communal board as much as you possibly can so that it's harder for your opponent to kind of match those same things. There is quite a lot of thinky strategy that kind of ends up going into it that really can kind of slow the game down, especially if you have people who overthink stuff, like I do quite often when I'm playing these sorts of games. However, it is a game that I think is actually quite fun. It sounds really confusing, and if I'm being honest, trying to explain it is a little difficult. But it surprisingly, once you start playing it, it actually ends up kind of clicking after the first few rounds. The instruction manual, I think, is a little tricky. The instruction manual kind of makes things seem definitely a lot more complicated than they need to be, kind of like I'm doing, admittedly. But hopefully I'm doing a better job in the instruction manual. But overall, that is the core of the game. You're flipping these cards. You're trying to create your shared memory, kind of by playing a solo solitaire game, in a way. That, interestingly enough, ends up being a pretty interesting experience, because solitaire with two people, first of all, does not make it solitaire, but it's surprisingly actually quite interesting. But that is more or less the way the game works. You basically do this until the deck runs out. Once the deck runs out, the game comes to an end, and players tally their scores. They'll tally the additional bonus objective that was drawn at the beginning of the game, and then you try the other map, or you set up for another game. I think this is a game that people should try. It's interesting. It's an interesting game, but it's kind of hard for me to say that it's a game you need to play. I will admit, I haven't really played a game like this where you're basically playing solitaire, but with a partner. I mean, it can be kind of like a take that game where you're placing stuff down, trying to prevent your opponent from placing stuff down. But at the same time, you also kind of want to work together in a co-op kind of way, because you're trying to remember this trip together. It's a really weird kind of balance. It's kind of a weird kind of theme, thinking that you're trying to remember the trip, but you're also kind of trying to remember it before your opponent does, which is one of the things I actually don't like too much about the game, is that there's really no way for either of the players to say, well, no, that's not really how the trip was. That's not what happened at all. Just because a player happens to play that space down first, there's no way to kind of counteract that and be like, well, no, I actually think it happened like this. Because if you go on a real trip, just because you remember something first, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what happened, right? So I kind of wish there was a way to kind of add that kind of outlook into the game, which is something I might actually try and do, see if we can make up some sort of rules for how to add a way to somehow change the communal board, whether it just be like once per game for each person. You can be like, well, no, it was actually like this is how it was. But yeah, that's something that we're gonna have to work out. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Remember Our Trip. I think it's a fun game. I think people should try it, but I think it also requires a certain mindset going into it. It can be a very thinky game. It can be a very slow game at time, especially when you're trying to think of the best places for all your pieces to go down, because you have limited movement. But I do enjoy the game, and it's something I want to play a little more. We haven't played the Kyoto side. We also haven't played with a lot of the additional rules. That's something that we need to go into. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Remember Our Trip. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. if you've played Remember Your Trip, let me know what you think about it down in the comments. Interested to see what other people think of the game, if they have a similar kind of outlook as I do on the game, or if they couldn't get into it, if you couldn't, if it just wasn't your kind of game, or if you really enjoyed it. Or let me know if this video made you want to go try out the game. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Remember Our Trip. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully I will see you all next time. But until then, just remember that board games are for everybody, and I'll see you all then. Peace.